guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. I have assembled every single miniature I painted this year. I do this every single year, and the pile always astounds me. Although, this is the first year that the number, actually maybe last year, but it was tight, it was close. This year, all of these miniatures is 360. I would have really liked to have gotten 5 more models done because then it would be 365 and it'd be 1 model per day, but it didn't quite happen. But it is still a ton of minis. Last year I painted 430 something, so this year it is less. But I do think the models I painted this year are all good. Like every year usually there's a couple of projects that are like 200 zombies or 100 of this other little infantry unit, and those guys just get done. Every single model this year, I tried my darndest on, and I really like how it turned out. This year, I played a lot more games this year, and I think that shows in what things I actually got done. A lot of these models got played with. Unfortunately, not all of them. There's actually quite a few that did not get played with, but some of them got played with so much. Towards the end of the year, I went hard into Age of Sigmar Spearhead, and I got Skaventide painted up. I got Yndrasta and the Stormcast Eternals painted up, and I got the Ogre Maw Tribes Spearhead painted up. Oh, the Ogre Maw Tribes. So many games of Spearhead. I don't know how many games I've played with the Ogre Maw Tribes Spearhead. Maybe 15, maybe, like it's a lot. I played in 2 tournaments with those guys. One, I won overall, and the other one I came in 3rd, but it was really close. I scored the most victory points over the course of the day, but I lost my final match, and so that cost me my 1st place trophy. Yndrasta Spearhead, it's really fun, and I really like how those models turned out. It actually wasn't, it was a repaint. Some of the models I painted from scratch because I bought them new this year, but some of them were the old Dominion models that I painted back in the Dizay with Nick, actually. That was a fun video, but I repainted them all this year. I really like how they turned out this year. And then Skaventide, the Skaventide models. The Skaven all of the Skaventide models are super gorgeous, but some of them are like cool knights, and the other ones are rat people, and it's just rat people. How can you not absolutely love just the grotesque, evil Skaven clan rats and the rat ogres and the rattling warp blasta and the Skaven on a horsey Skaven? It's just really good. Age of Sigmar, the models are so much fun to paint. I had painted up some things for my Sylvaneth Realm Lords, my Sylvaneth. It was Sylvaneth. I got all my S's confused. Painted some models for my Sylvaneth, my little tree people. These are something, but they're big, monstrous trees on 50mm bases. I like big bases, and I cannot lie. It's always been true, but this year I totally discovered that I love big miniatures, just big chonky fellas. I love playing with those types of units. Terminator, Centurion warsuits, Imperial Guard, Ogryn, Tyrannid, Tyrant Guard, like any just big chonky dude on a big chonky base are so much fun because they don't just die. They don't just get wiped off the board. They stick around and they punch and they shoot and they do stuff. I think the Ogre Maw Tribes is what really put me onto that because look at these big dudes. They're so big and chunky with their big Santa pants and they're shirtless. These guys are so much fun to paint. It took me a very long time to do it, but it was really worth it. I did also paint a lot of just piddly little fellas. The piddliest is probably like 60, I think it's 69 stormtroopers I painted this year. That number was completely random. I didn't plan for that, but it is kind of perfect. I finished all of my Imperial miniatures for the game Star Wars Legion, which might be a lie. I think I have the vehicle from Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. I think that's in a box somewhere in this house, but out of sight, out of mind, I'm gonna say I have finished every single Imperial model that I have in my collection, and so I have a massive Star Wars Legion Imperial army that I need to get playing with. It's been years since I played Star Wars Legion. I know there's a big scene at my friendly local gaming store, and so I need to I need to like text the group chat and be like, somebody please teach me Star Wars Legion again, because I need to play with all of these unpainted, or these painted miniatures. I actually painted a ton of Star Wars Legion this year. I also painted a whole bunch of little Geonosian warriors. I remember at the end of this video, I painted the base rims in a blue, and because that's the color of the droid army. And I remember asking, what do people think of the blue? And they're like, no, don't do the blue, do black base rims. The blue doesn't look good. I like the blue base rim, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna paint an entire army with navy blue base rims, and it's gonna be glorious. In terms of other games, I also painted up probably about half of a dwarf army for Warhammer the Old World. And I bought my buddy's dwarf army, and so it's all sitting in a box in like various states of destroyed, but I could fix it all. I could play Old World. I'm a part of a bunch of Old World Facebook groups, and it does look interesting. Oh, the crazy esoteric questions that people ask in that group. The pivoting rules, the charging mechanics, how Lance works specifically. It does look like a bit of a mess of a game, but it does look really, really interesting. And I like the little dwarves, so I do need to get to work on finishing this Old World's army. It didn't even take, because they're so physically small. This guy's the size of a peanut M&M. I could get more of these guys painted up really, really fast. So, look at the Old World. I remember knocking these guys out in like a week and then not really thinking about them again for the rest of the year. That just happens. That just happens sometimes when you're painting tons and tons of miniatures. Some other armies that didn't quite really get their time in the sun is probably my Necrons, Genestealer Cults, and Tyranids. They both got a little bit of love. In fact, I painted up my Necron Nemesis Zandrek and Vargard Oberon, and I really like how these miniatures turned out, and it did kind of get me excited to play my Necrons. And Necrons just got a new detachment that's all about vehicles that looks really, really good. So I might have to give my Necrons a little bit more love in the upcoming year, but this year, didn't quite get to them. Who decided 365? That is way too short for an entire year. I need like 500 days at least to be able to actually get everything I want to get done in a timely manner. My Tyranids, I got some big bugs finished. I got some Venomthropes, the Tyranid Nero Lictor, and the Nero Thictor. And I got the slot machine himself, the Trigon. And by Trigon, I mean Tyrannofex. I got my T's mixed up. I've got another one of those guys sitting in box. I'm making myself sad just bringing up that all of these projects are not quite finished. I gotta focus on that the things I actually got done, but I do have another Tyrannofex to paint because I want to do big bugs. I want to do big bugs, and I cannot lie. I already used that joke, but I'm using it again. My Genestealer Cult army got repainted for a 5th time with some brand spanking new vehicles designed by us here at Eons of Battle. This is an Achilles Ridge Runner. I don't like the Games Workshop Achilles Ridge Runner, and so this is a proxy for it. It is a little combat bus. It's yellow. It's a magic school bus covered in guns and lasers and indirect fire mortar launchers. These are like a must-have unit for Genestealer Cult, and so I must have one, but I don't want the Games Workshop one, so I have my own. It takes up that 120 millimeter oval base. It's always a little frustrating when models stand on the big base, but they completely cover the base. And so you have to paint it. You have to put all the texture paste in the cork, and you have to make it look good, but then you gotta cover it all up with a big vehicle. But that is how 40K works. Some vehicles get a base, some vehicles don't get a base. I don't know how they make that decision. I'm pretty sure Games Workshop doesn't know how they make that decision, but at least I got some new models for my Genestealer Cult. One 40K army that I almost completely forgot about until I looked in this direction is my Deathguard. I actually painted a ton of stuff for my Deathguard. My Deathguard is currently on my painting desk, so I felt like the most shameful of not really touching it much this year. I painted a ton of Deathguard this year. I painted Morty. Morty, the gigantic, who can now Deep Strike now. They finally put Deep Strike into his profile. Because he has wings. How on earth did this guy not have Deep Strike until the newest balanced data slate? He can totally drop out of the sky and do some serious damage on the tabletop. But Morty with the wings painted up with my dwindling supply of the magical paint that I used to paint these guys. I painted Morty, I painted the Blight Drones of Nurgle, which is an old Forge World unit, and I made them poopin' because it just makes me giggle. And I painted Demon Prince of Nurgle, which is another, man, when did I get a hold of you? This model hasn't been sold in years and years and years, but I had one in my collection. This is how you're supposed to hold Demon Princes, by the way. But this guy is so old and then discontinued for so long, but I have one in my collection and I'm very, very proud of him. And I painted another vehicle. I don't really like painting vehicles and I don't often paint vehicles. I would like to say that I did a very good job of painting vehicles this year. I painted 18 vehicles, which is really, really good for me. I think I've learned a lot about painting vehicles. It's still not as much fun for me as painting a guy because when I paint a dude, they come to life so quickly and so easily, and every brushstroke helps to like tell the story, where with a vehicle, it's like, all right, this next hour is gonna be paint chipping. The next half hour is going to be finding all of the little headlights on the vehicle and picking those out. It doesn't feel like it all comes together as quickly, but I've been learning that there's different things that make vehicle painting more interesting and more engaging, like treating that weathering differently than you would do on a normal guy. A normal guy might have just some scuffs and bruises on him, but a vehicle you can say like, oh, well, this side of the tank got hit with mortar shells and this side of the tank got hit with laser fire. And so you can definitely do some fun storytelling with vehicles, which I am definitely learning how to do. But I painted another vehicle for my Deathguard, and that is Deafy. I can't call you Deafy because Mini Wargaming calls their Defiler Deafy, but my Deathguard Defiler, This is another miniature created by us here at Eons of Battle. He is the Demon Engine of Nurgle. At least mine is a Demon Engine of Nurgle. He's a spooky little spider guy. Actually, he's a really big spider guy, and he is glorious. In-game, his stats are, I guess, nothing to write home about, but they're certainly not bad. I almost want to bring a trio of these guys and just have my opponent be like, really? You're bringing 3 Defilers? But then that's actually going to be kind of good and kind of hard to deal with if they don't have the proper amount of anti-tank. One thing I was shocked at looking at this table is how few Black Templar I painted this year. I basically only painted the Terminators, 4 Neophytes, 1 Intercessor, and the Primaris Outrider ATV, which is actually a ton of points. Oh, and I painted this guy, the Primaris Lancer Laser Destroyer. And the barrel of this Laser Lancer Destroyer is actually designed by me. I hopped on the computer and I actually digitally modeled this because I did not like the cannon that was like, it was like a M1 Abrams cannon that they have for the actual Laser Destroyer. But when I hear Laser Destroyer, I don't think of like a gun that shoots actual cannon shells. I think of a laser beam, and so I actually modeled this myself. So yeah, I actually painted up, man, probably close to 500 points of Black Templar, even though it's a very, very small footprint on this table. But I built a ton of Black Templar because I went hard in competitive 40K this year, focusing on my Black Templar. And so I played so many games. I mean, I played 20 games with Sean, maybe another 10 or 15 games at the friendly local game store. I played in 2 RTs, came in dead last in both of those RTs, but I do need to work on my Black Templar because I built a bunch and they're sitting in my painting room, but they're not quite painted yet. And I'm so good at painting my Black Templar now. I've been painting Black Templar for 10 years. I got my recipe on lock. Maybe that's part of the reason why I haven't been painting that much Black Templar, because I know everything. I know everything about painting Black Templar. I know what kind of experiences I'm gonna have. I know exactly what I wanna do. And so sometimes I'm like, I wanna paint a tree, or I wanna paint an ogre, or I wanna paint something weird that's gonna challenge me and be different and is probably gonna feel like a big old failure until it's done at the very end of the process, and then it starts to feel cool. But yeah, I need to work on some more Black Templar because only a few of them. I only added a quarter of a new army to my Black Templar. I've only got like 16,000 points of Black Templar. That army is in desperate need of some more tender loving care. Oh, and speaking of Space Marines, one project that was amazing this year is Space Hulk. I got a new inbox copy of Space Hulk and I painted it up. Oh, I tried so hard on my copy of Space Hulk. I remember staying up until like 2 o'clock in the morning trying to get these models done. When I put the varnish on these fellas at 2 o'clock in the morning, it felt wild, but I'm so happy with these guys. If there was, I think I say this every single year, but if there was a fire and all of my models were burning up in a giant fire and I only had a few seconds to save a couple of them, I mean, I would save Stompy, the giant Titan, the Reaver Titan, but I would also try to grab Space Hulk because it's history. I remember back in high school buying a used copy of Space Hulk off of a friend of mine, doing a horrible job on all of those miniatures. And so it was amazing to try again on a brand new a new in-box, in-shrink copy of Space Hulk and having it look like how I wanted those miniatures to look. Ah, pretty good. Where's the cat? This is the cat. Look at the little cat. He's so cute. I actually still have my original cat from the copy I bought off a friend of mine, and I put little cat ears. I know it's in this house. I've seen him like once or twice over the last few years, but I couldn't find him right this second, but I also have the one from the new copy. The very first miniatures that I painted this year, which feels like it's from a different time. It doesn't feel like it happened this year, but I actually painted these two little, you almost went flying off the table. I painted these two little models from Judge Dredd 2080. It's Dredd himself and then Judge Anderson. And these were really fun. Every now and again, I'm in a painting mood, but I don't have like something I absolutely need to be doing right this second. And so I just grab something out of the pile of shame. And these two guys turned out lovely. Maybe I should paint some more 2080 miniatures because I do remember these guys being really fun. I tried really hard on non-metallic metal with these. I painted their tushies and I painted their crazy shoulder pads. I do like that they're based on the comic book version of these characters. Like the Carl Urban movie is fantastic, but I feel like it wouldn't make for as fun of miniatures as the old school comic book versions. These models turned out really, really nice. I haven't been doing that much random painting this year. Actually, most of the things I worked on was adding quite a bit to my armies so that I could actually play games, which is the hobby. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Although every now and then, just trying out something weird and fun and new is good. Speaking of weird and new and fun, I did get another miniature war game called Don't Look Back, which is from Blacksite, or it was published by Blacksite Studios. And it is kind of a little bit of like a D&D game. It's an RPG where usually the DM takes the role of the monster or the villain, and then everybody else plays as like the heroes or the teenagers, or you're basically playing Jason Voorhees, the Halloween, or not the Halloween movies, the Friday the 13th movies. I mean, you can play basically any horror movie you can think of. You can play this game. But it was really, really fun to just find random models that I was interested in, and then having an outlet to actually get to paint them this year and have them for a very good reason to play this game. I've got this weird little cultist. I've got Rambo, but Lady Rambo. I wish I didn't finish the base on you. Okay, well, I know what I'm doing after this video, but this is the spooky sailor from Scooby-Doo. I mean, how great is that? I would never have an opportunity to paint a miniature like this. I mean, I guess I could always just paint a model, but it's so much fun that I get to paint this model and then have it be a usable unit in game. I used Ghillie Doo speed paint on this guy because it's one of the most phenomenal colors ever invented. It was really, really fun. Speaking of really, really fun though, also this year, this table is just a little bit smaller because I painted things for other people. I painted 6 old school retro Ogryn for Sean. Those models are currently at his house. I think he's reeling because in the data slate that just came out last night, if you take a max squad of 6 Ogryn, it now costs you 10 more points. And since he's a guard player and you actually can work an extra 10 points into your list, he's probably doing some math hammer right now trying to figure that out. I also painted the Green Knight for Cobalt Keep. That was a whole diorama. Although he asked for a diorama, I actually took the model and I put it on a base and then I worked the base into the diorama because I would not be able to forgive myself if I painted a model that's for a game, but can no longer be played within a game. Although, I was thinking about it a few weeks ago, probably a smarter way to do that would be to have the diorama and put the magnets in the Green Knight's feet so that the Green Knight could be taken off of the diorama and then placed onto another base. I carved a giant rectangle out of the diorama. I think the way I did it worked, but it probably would have been smarter just to have magnets in the horsey's feet so that it could be swapped in and out. For anybody out there building dioramas, please steal that idea because it is a shame. It's a real shame if a miniature doesn't get to be played with in games. And I also painted a bunch of Blood Angels. I painted Gabriel Seth of the Flesh Terrors chapter and a squad of Sanguinary Priests. And just because he left the Codex, and so it was a little bit heartbreaking to see this character that's kind of always existed in 40k gone. I think he's gone for right now. I do think everything that Games Workshop gets rid of, I do think is going to come back because now with 10th edition, Games Workshop is kind of re-solidifying 40k. And so I think down the line, they're going to start to branch out into those smaller, weirder parts of Warhammer 40,000. So this year we got a big Blood Angels update, but maybe down the line we're going to get some of the secondary founding chapters for Blood Angels, like the Flesh Terrors. But I painted up those models and I gave them away. We asked for people to send us emails of their Flesh Terrors army, and we picked one, and that person actually emailed us back those models played in a game. Which is like, that's the whole point. It's so cool that those guys, they shot, they charged, they participated in a battle of Warhammer 40,000. It was really, really cool to see. If I had to pick an overall favorite and least favorite models that I painted this year, it's always, I just got these guys all out of their boxes and off of the shelves and all of the random places that they were hiding because we never clean up around here. And so everything is just an absolute mess. Honestly, having it all on this table means that other places in my house are cleaner. but as soon as this video is done, they're all gonna go back to scattered to the four winds. But all of these models are like my favorite right now. I love all of these miniatures. But what are the models that didn't quite work out? Maybe the Gene Stealer cults. I really like how they're painted, but seeing them all together, they do feel like a bunch of pink dudes. But I think that's kind of easy to fix. I think I could throw some contrast paints into my airbrush and just tint them and to get a little bit more color variety out of them. I'm actually pretty happy with my Gene Stealer cults. I'm upset that I didn't paint more Tyranids, but I never found which detachment was my favorite. I've played a few games with the Tyranid, but I don't feel like there's one detachment that really fits me in exactly how I want to play that army. To pick one model that I think is not everything it could be, I think it would be the new 24-hour Knight, the Knight Castellan, the big stompy boy. I really, really like how I painted this guy, but he's not done. I painted him and I assembled, based, and painted him in 24 hours. That was not enough time. Not enough time at all. I think the fire is like mostly done, but there's a ton of stuff on this guy that's just not quite done. I didn't properly non-metallic metal blend out his armor and the hull of his, is this his back or is this his head? It's so hard to know with the Knights because they have such weird posture. Like I worked so hard on the guns, but I worked too hard on the guns, and so then I had to rush through some other elements of this guy. So I think I definitely need to come back to this guy and give him probably another day of love just to get him exactly where I would like him to be. It's very rare that I'm working under a crazy time crunch, but I really didn't want. I think the last two Knight videos, I finished just barely on time. Actually, the first time I painted a Knight in 24 hours, I finished like an hour and some change late. So I really wanted to get this guy done in time, and he is done. He can totally play in a game. Everything about him is finished, but I would like to spend a lot more time on this guy and just get him a little bit better, a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer. I noticed looking at my Knight Lancer that I used a lot more brass on that model, and so I want to maybe pick out some areas on this guy to turn him a little bit more brassy so he looks really, really good next to my Reaver Titan Stompy and next to my Cerastus Knight Lancer. So I think this guy is good. He's just not done. If I had to pick a favorite model that I painted this year, that's also really, really hard because all of these models are my favorites. And there's so many different models here. Like this year I painted like almost 20 random Space Marines. And some of those Space Marines turned out I like how they all turned out, but some of them really took me by surprise once they were done and I was holding it in my hand. That yellow Imperial Fist Space Marine That's a nice yellow Marine. He is really, really fun to look at. Something about yellow. Yellow on Space Marines looks really, really good. Every time I painted a Space Marine yellow, it works really well. I think it's because it's literally one of the brightest colors you can possibly use. It's almost white, and so it reflects a lot of light. One trick that I like to do when I'm painting a miniature is if I need to get up to get a glass of water or something, I'll carry the model with me and I'll watch it as I walk through my house. And so I see that model under all sorts of different lighting conditions, under my beautiful painting lamps, in almost darkness as I'm walking up the stairs, in the really bad lighting of my kitchen. And so I kind of get to see what parts and what colors are reflecting in different ways. And so that kind of helps to inform me when I think a model is turning out really good, but I'm not really seeing it for what it is because I'm under my really, really nice lights. Sometimes seeing it in dark is like, oh, the purple is doing nothing. That purple vanishes as soon as I am out of studio lighting. And so then I come back and I saturate that color a little bit more, or I brighten up other aspects of the miniature. And so when did I start talking about painting? I really like how the Space Marines turned out. But overall winner, I mean, I almost feel like I have to give it to the Ogre Ma tribes because I won a tournament with those guys. These guys actually won a painting award. It's back there somewhere. I got a gold medallion from Dragonfall for this army. Dragonfall had one of the coolest painting competitions that I've ever seen because to enter the army category of that competition, you actually had to play that army in one of the tournament events at Dragonfall. I didn't even know showing up. I brought other things for the painting competition, but then I found out there was an army category. And so after a day of playing 5 games of Spearhead with my Ogre Ma tribes, I brought like a baking sheet for them. Like that's how I transported them to the convention. I just turned the tray upside down and I put them on top and I put them in the painting competition and they won gold because I tried so hard on these guys. Ooh, no, I've got it. Favorite model of the year is the Mournfangs. Remember when I talked about liking really big dudes? These are the biggest of the really big dudes. It's really, really subtle, but I did a lot of kit bashing and converting on these guys. The way the model comes from Games Workshop, they're sitting so high, like their saddle is above the shoulder blades of the Mournfang, and it looks like a little toddler sitting on like the family dog. And so I shaved off so much material and I dremeled and I green stuffed to get them seated a little bit more firmly, like they're actually riding the thing, not just on a little tyke's throne. They're not on a little baby potty on top of these beasts. I really, really like how these turned out. They also hit like a truck in game. With the Spearhead, you only get 2 of them instead of a normal squad of 4, but that's still 7, 14 dice hitting on 4s, AP -1, damage 2. That is a beautiful, beautiful profile. I adore the Mournfangs. I keep thinking to myself because I've been talking with Vince Pleasant Kenobi, and he's trying to get me into Age of Sigmar proper, real Warhammer 40k. And I'm thinking, or real Age of Sigmar, and I'm thinking, what army do I go into? I kind of only want to do one because I want it to quickly grow into a proper force that I can play over and over and over again. Because knowing myself, I want to get a little bit of this, I want to get a little bit of that, but I gotta focus. And what could I really focus on that'll keep my attention? It might be Beastclaw Raiders. Just spam Mournfangs. I don't even care if they're bad in the real game. But man, does it take so much work to build one of these guys. And this is just dude on a horse. This is just a cavalry unit. It's not like I'm making it sound like this is the big monstrous hero of my army. This is just a dude. But I really, really like this dude. The Mournfangs. Definitely my model of the year. I love these things. Could I paint like 18 more? I mean, I could. If I could snap my fingers and just have it, I would do it. But could I actually sit down and make it happen? I don't know, maybe. And I almost have to make this decision quick because I have a hunch. Ogre Ma tribes are old. The models are ancient. And so I'm guessing that Games Workshop is going to update them. And I don't really want them to be updated. I can't imagine Games Workshop making them look better then unless Games Workshop revamps this kit and does it exactly with the saddle modifications that I made, other than that, I don't want the changes. I want them exactly like this. So I almost have to get a move on if I want to get the models that I want, but I don't know. I like the Ogre Maw tribes and I like the Mournfangs the most. One humongous gaming table of miniatures. I think 1 year, one table, that's pretty good. And everything I painted this year isn't even on this table. I painted so much terrain. I painted more terrain than would fit on this table. We have some pretty cool games here at Eons of Battle. If I had to pick a winner for terrain that I painted this year, it might be the pack available right now in the month of December. For the month of December, we have made the Fall Buildings Part 1, the easiest way to get a ton of terrain really fast. This set focuses on printable decorations for cardboard, foam core, and Pringles cans buildings. Build out a grimdark militarized fort dripping with details, with a selection of sandbag-laden battlements, barbed wire defenses, armored wall decorations, and noble eagle lookout posts. This set allows for large terrain to be built in record time, and it has printable textures to add detail and decoration to take that terrain to the next level. This is the first of 3 releases that focus on getting a proper 40k board up and running as easily as possible. I can't believe I haven't talked about it until now. I painted a Dark Eldar army, an entire Dark Eldar army. I think that's why all of my other 40k armies only got a smattering of new units, is because I needed to get this Dark Eldar army done. Doing a little competition with someone you might have heard of, Scott the Miniature Maniac, and so we're both working on painting up Dark Eldar, and I'm this close to being completely done, which is kind of good because I actually played a game of 40k last night in TTS with an army that is not on this table. It's not built, it's not painted, but it is in this house. And now that I have the Dark Eldar pretty much done, I think I might be moving into the next year, starting a brand new 40k army. And so my other 40k armies can languish. I will get them done, I will get them all playable, but I got some new stuff that I'm working on that has really, really got me excited. It's not Mournfangs. But it is something kind of like Mournfangs, weirdly. Let me know in the comments below, what are your 2024 hobby projects that you found really, really fulfilling? What are your favorite models that you have painted this year? What are models that surprised you? What are models that just stole your heart like me and the Mournfangs? I wanna know. This year I painted just a little bit less, but I painted it just a little bit better. I wonder what'll happen next year. Thanks for watching.